Sharia law is the law that is implemented when you have an Islamic republic. And that's why you see so much in Iran today in terms of people demonstrating in the streets and showing their frustration because they're living under Sharia law. That's what was in Afghanistan when we went in there in October of 2001, where they would take women out to the soccer field, make them kneel and shoot them in the head, where there were people walking around missing hands. It's a brutal law. And one of the tenets of Sharia law is there can be no man-made laws, only God-given laws. That's what an Islamic republic is. And that's how Ayatollah Khomeini convinced his supporters to bring him back and to overthrow the Shah. I see remnants of that same scenario unfolding now in the Middle East. I believe that unlike what has been regularly reported, I believe that at the very base of what happened in these countries is the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm going to talk about them in a second and tell you what they are. The reason that I say that is because in October of last year, 2010, a man named Mohammed Badi, the head of the International Muslim Brotherhood, it's a global organization, Mohammed Badi called for uprisings against the leaders of nations that had Islamic populations that had not yet established Sharia law. Mohammed Badi, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then on the 8th of January of this year, the leading Islamic cleric at Al-Azhar University, which is the leading university for Islamic jurisprudence or Islamic law, in Cairo called for jihad. That's holy war. Jihad against the leaders of these nations that did not yet implement Sharia law. And only 3 days later, events started to erupt in Tunisia and then spilled over into Egypt and have now spilled over into other places. There are three groups of people in each of these countries where all of this is going on. The first group are the true Democrats. They want democracy, Jeffersonian democracy. There are a very small percentage of the people that are there, out in the streets. Most of them are Western educated. They have been to universities in either Western Europe or universities in America. They understand democracy and they want democracy. And by the way, many of them are from the Christian enclaves that still exist in those countries like Egypt, where maybe 8% of the people are actually Coptic Christians. And they see that their only chance of survival in the future, because they're under such deep, serious persecution by the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamic groups, that they see that their only chance of survival is a true Jeffersonian-style democracy. The second group are the Marxists. And there are many Marxists in that part of the world. And you need to understand that Islam and Marxism run parallel in terms of their theology up to a point. And at that point is where Islam says there is only one God, and that is Allah, and Muhammad was his prophet. And Marxism says there is no God, we are atheists, and that's communism. Okay? There is a group involved in what's going on over there that are the Marxists. A prime example is a man named El-Baradei. El-Baradei was the head of the United Nations IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. He was the head UN inspector of nuclear facilities for those nations that had signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And El-Baradei is a hardcore Marxist who has acknowledged that, who hates America. He has said so repeatedly in so many words. And by the way, he is also the guy that said on 3 different occasions that Iran had no nuclear weapons program. The guy that came in and replaced him immediately said not only did they have a program, but they could be within a year of having a deployable nuclear weapon. Third day of what started to erupt in Egypt, the third day, the Muslim Brotherhood endorsed El-Baradei to be Hosni Mubarak's replacement, which means there is now a partnership between the second group, the Marxists, and the third group, which is the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, you need to remember that Hosni Mubarak came to power because Anwar Sadat was assassinated by the Muslim Brotherhood. They assassinated him. Why did they assassinate him? Because he signed the Camp David peace accords, made peace with Israel, and then lived up to the peace accords that he had signed. And because he made peace with Israel, the Muslim Brotherhood assassinated Anwar Sadat. Hosni Mubarak, as the vice president, stepped up, took over, and immediately outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood. So when you hear media reports that say the Muslim Brotherhood is only 20% of the people in Egypt, I say, duh. It's an outlawed, illegal organization. How many people do you think are going to acknowledge that they're part of the Muslim Brotherhood? But by the way, look at the Pew Research polls, where 85% of the people in Cairo, in Egypt, in the whole country of Egypt, of over 8 million people, 85% of the people polled said that they wanted Islam to be the dominant factor in the next government in Egypt. I'm telling you, that's Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood will eventually surface as being the dominant power in Egypt. Like these other countries, I believe, will become Islamic republics. Now, what is the Muslim Brotherhood? Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1928 by two men, Hassan al-Banna and Saeed Qutb. They created the Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo, and the reason they created it was because in 1924, a guy named Ataturk destroyed the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was the great hope of Islam. The Ottoman Empire's mission was to establish a global caliphate. The concept of the caliphate is a geographic area over which the Islamic Messiah or the Mahdi will come and reign and rule and bring peace and establish Sharia law. So everyone will live under Sharia law. When Ataturk turned Turkey into a secular government with an Islamic population, that was the end of the Ottoman Empire. 1924. 1928, these two men created the Muslim Brotherhood to try and resurrect the Ottoman Empire, to give Islam the hope of establishing the global caliphate. In their first 10 years, they had only about 800 members. They didn't do very well in their recruiting the first 10 years. But in 1938, a man came along and gave them millions of dollars. Who knows who the man was? Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler cut a deal with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood in Jerusalem. He said, if you will stop the Jews from coming out of Europe and coming back into Palestine, I'll give you millions of dollars. Don't let them come back here. We'll keep them hemmed up in Germany. I will capture them and I will exterminate them. With that millions of dollars, the Muslim Brotherhood became a global organization. I say global. It's all over the world now. With millions of members, with lots of money, and with the passion for doing exactly what they were created to do, which is establish a global caliphate and Sharia law inside that caliphate. That's why I believe that what you will see as these nations fall, as these rulers change, as new governments form, I think you will see Islamic republics, because the Muslim Brotherhood is trying to establish this caliphate in that part of the world to begin with, and then extend it out beyond there. Remember that the Ottoman Empire took all of the Mediterranean, all of North Africa, all of the southern littorals of Europe, and went all the way to the gates of Vienna twice, and were turned back 2 times by the European military, European armies primarily. The Navy got involved a little bit, though. I don't want to give the Navy too much credit. They were ultimately defeated in World War I. And I believe what you're seeing is you're seeing the Muslim Brotherhood trying to reestablish their dominance across North Africa. Then you'll see it start into the southern littorals of Europe. And by the way, in case you don't realize it, all the experts, this is not my assessment, this is fact, all the experts will tell you that by the middle of this century, Europe will be an Islamic continent. You realize that? Europe will be an Islamic continent. That's what all the experts say. I don't know about you, but it gives me great concern.